Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Will China invade Taiwan? And if yes, what would that look like? On Gravitas tonight, we tell you how China is preparing and what that's looking like. Also, the message that it's trying to send out to the world. We decode this and more in just a bit. Meanwhile, here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. We tell you all about a victory for Iranian women, a major one and long due. The Iranian president says the morality police were not supposed to confront women and that he will follow up so that they don't bother them. But what would that mean and will this be enough? We discuss. Who will be the next Prime Minister of Japan? Will a former rock band member take over? We get you the complete story. If you thought drinking water can cure your hangover, think again. According to a new study, it's not that easy. We tell you all that you need to know. All this and more coming up. We're starting off with some news coming in right from Lebanon, where hundreds of Hezbollah members have reportedly been injured when their pagers they used to communicate with exploded. According to reports, several Hezbollah members were seen bleeding as a result of injuries in the southern suburb of Beirut, known as Dahye. The question is, was this a coordinated attack? And if so, who was behind it? It's too soon to say, but the detonation of the pagers is already being deemed as the biggest security breach that the Hezbollah has faced since the start of the war in Gaza. As per the details that have been trickling in, ambulances have reportedly been rushing to Beirut, with residents saying explosions were taking place even 30 minutes after the initial blasts. And what's more, reports say that the alleged security breach that led to the explosions happened simultaneously in Beirut, Mount Lebanon and Dahye. Regional broadcasters carrying CCTV footage showing what appeared to be a small handheld device placed next to a grocery store cashier spontaneously exploding. And in another piece of footage, an explosion appeared to knock out someone standing at a fruit stand at a market area. Now, as per Lebanon's Crisis Operations Center, it has reportedly asked all medical workers to head to their respective hospitals and help cope with the massive numbers of the injured people coming in for urgent care. Other reports cite Hezbollah sources pointing the finger at Israel. Meanwhile, Iran's ambassador to Lebanon was reportedly among those who were injured. Just for context here, since October 2023, the Iran-backed group from Lebanon, Hezbollah, has carried out strikes on Israeli targets, saying they were in solidarity with Palestinians impacted by Israel's war on Gaza. And we will be tracking those developments very closely. For now, we are getting in further updates telling us that 3 people have lost their lives. 3 people have died as a result of those explosions. A number of questions at this point. Let's get in our correspondent, Gadi Francis, who is there on ground zero in Beirut. Gadi, over to you. What more can you share with us at this point? What's the latest?
Hello. Well, in the latest, the press release by Hezbollah really further explained the situation. They still did not point fingers officially. They say they are carrying on their investigations. And as reported in their press release, they announced 3 deaths. But as per other reports that are being circulated, the number of deaths might be rising. As you have explained, tens and maybe hundreds of injuries are being reported right now as we speak, as at 3:30 p.m. Many explosions, countless explosions, mini explosions happen. The thing is, these pagers are a certain communication means. They are held by every Hezb member, every member of Hezbollah, whether they are a fighter or politician. It is their means of communication as an organization. So this cyber attack or hack that caused every single device to blast caused simultaneous injuries not only in Beirut but also in southern Lebanon and in other areas where any Hezbollah person who happened to be carrying their device actually got injured in the attack around 3:30 p.m. Now, in more details, the attack happened as such. A message was received so that each person would actually hold it in their hands and look at their screen, and within seconds it blasted. This is why many of the recorded injuries are being recorded in the hands or the face, but they are not deadly injuries up so far. This is why the number of deaths is respectively way lower than the injuries.
Right. Gadi, as we continue to monitor the latest coming in, like we just mentioned, Iran's ambassador to Lebanon, also among those injured, what more details can you share about the numbers that are coming in at this point? Because what has been earlier said is that the explosions were taking place even 30 minutes after the initial blasts. That's according to some of the residents. So are those explosions still taking place? What more do we know on that front?
Well, the Iranian embassy in Beirut has reported that, yes, there has been a very minor injury in their teams. This is what they have most recently, like minutes ago, confirmed. As for other, one of the deaths is the son of an MP in Hezbollah. Mahdi Ammar has been announced a martyr by Hezbollah members on social media, and his death has been confirmed. He is the son of Ali Ammar, a Lebanese member of the parliament representing the Hezbollah group. Another man who is also a member of Hezbollah has been announced martyred, and a little girl who probably happened to be around the pager of her father. Other details of the deaths and the injuries have not been reported. Now, we have to take into consideration that because Lebanon and Israel are in a cyber warfare since months now, many calls and warnings have been circulating since the attack to avoid sharing pictures, CCTV feeds, and names and details of the injured personnel, given that they are all linked to Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is directly the part of Lebanon that is involved in this warfare with Israel. So little details have been reported. They are being discreet, and even in the Hezbollah announcement that has been issued now, they do not go into details. They just say that what happened, a very limited amount of sentences, and they announced the deaths of 2 members and a child. That was it. They did not even say it was directly by Israel. They said they will carry on the investigations to know further about this hack.
Right. Gadi, stay with us as the details continue to trickle in. Let's just take a step back and get in some perspectives at this point from Nadine Majzoub, senior journalist who's with us on the phone line from Beirut. Thanks very much for being here on the broadcast. Let me begin by asking you for your assessment of what we are seeing playing out at this point.
Excuse me, I cannot hear you very well. In any case, if you are asking me about how is it going now, I can tell that still the injuries are still coming to the hospitals in Lebanon, and we're talking all over Lebanon. As well, the attack could reach Hezbollah member in Syria as well, even the hospitals in Syria. It seems that they are receiving injured from Hezbollah member. Already, yet we don't know how many are injured, but we're talking about a huge amount, like more than 1,000 people were directly attacked by this Siberian hack that happened in Lebanon. Eventually, nothing is very clear yet. We are still waiting for the official news coming from Hezbollah. What we know is already one of the Lebanese parliament member of Hezbollah lost his son, and it seems another one, his son is injured with this attack. So yet there is nothing confirmed. The only thing confirmed is that the pager was hacked, and this hacking did a nature that can be considered the most dangerous since October 7th, the most dangerous attack since October 7th, and yet we cannot tell how many exactly were injured by this attack or the casualties.
Right. Nadine Majzoub, thanks very much for being here on the broadcast. For those of you just joining us, we're getting you the minute-by-minute developments coming in from Lebanon, where hundreds of Hezbollah members have been injured when their pagers that they used to communicate with exploded. As a result of those explosions, we are picking up in the latest that's coming in, 8 people have died. Further details are awaited on that front as we have been piecing together the information that has been coming in. Several Hezbollah members were also seen bleeding as a result of those injuries in the southern suburb of Beirut, also known as Daye. A number of questions remain at this point, as you can imagine, since this incident unfolded just a short while back. Minute-by-minute developments details still trickling in. But as a result of this explosion, we are also aware that the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon is among those injured as a result of those explosions. Lebanon's Crisis Operations Center has also asked all medical workers to head to their respective hospitals in order to deal with the massive numbers of injured people coming in. We will be keeping a close eye on the latest coming in from Lebanon. For now, we are shifting our focus to China. It seems to be simulating an invasion of Taiwan. A recent documentary aired on China's state television provides a rare glimpse into China's preparations for an attack on Taiwan. The latest episode of the documentary series, called Quenching, was broadcast on Monday night itself. It details the process of a potential landing on Taiwan. Just have a look at these images on your screen. What do you see? Jets, helicopters, warships, rocket launchers. According to the documentary, in fact, these are being used for military exercises conducted by the People's Liberation Army's forces. It reveals China's potential war strategy involving ground forces, the Navy, and the rocket brigade. These pictures leave no doubt about China's intentions. One of the operations featured in the documentary involves a large-scale helicopter air assault by the Ground Forces Aviation Unit. It also showcases an aircraft carrier strike group's anti-access electronic countermeasures and a long-range rocket fire covering drill. And this entire episode lasts for 20 minutes. It starts off with a soldier expressing a nostalgic longing for a unified country. He laments how the island of Taiwan and mainland China still remain separated. A bit dramatic, isn't it? Apparently, not enough. Ironically, for a country seemingly nostalgic about Taiwan, the strategy for reunification involves significant force and violence. Because following this brief nostalgia, the program delves into how reconnaissance and strike drones will be used to facilitate the helicopters in delivering landing troops to the island. The documentary also shows helicopter air assault operation being conducted in an airfield with specially designed landing positions. The documentary shows the PLA deploying the high-altitude surveillance drones while helicopters flow near the sea level. The documentary plays out like a war movie. It shows Chinese forces training to face resistance from their adversaries. In the video, helicopters and landing troops encounter strong opposition from enemy forces equipped with man-portable air defense missiles. Interestingly, Taiwan recently acquired 250 FIM-92 Stinger manpads missiles from the US. And just this month, they announced plans to purchase 1,985 more. As the intense exercise unfolds, a soldier emphasizes the importance of finding new strategies to achieve victory in real battles. The documentary does not actually specify when the war games took place, but it was reported in July, remember, that the Chinese warship Yan'an accompanied the Shandong aircraft carrier along with 2 other warships on an exercise in the Western Pacific Ocean east of Taiwan. In fact, in July, Japan's military also photographed the Chinese warship during its operation. The Japanese military also spotted fighter planes and helicopters taking off and landing from Shandong. And this, by the way, was at the same time as the US leading the world's biggest maritime military drill near Hawaii, the Rim of the Pacific exercise. The entire documentary is further proof of the fact that a Chinese invasion of Taiwan is no longer a matter of if, it's a matter of when, it seems. China, which views democratically governed Taiwan as its own territory, has ramped up military and political pressure around the island over the past 5 years, and this is in a bid to assert its claims, which Taipei, of course, strongly rejects. In fact, China's activities are what is referred to as grey zone warfare. Basically, it involves using tactics that stop short of actual combat to test and pressure the Taiwanese forces. And that is why there has been regular Coast Guard patrols near the Taiwan-controlled Kinmen Islands. Now, these islands lie within the view of China. You see, these war simulations are a warning to Taiwan and its allies, specifically speaking, the United States. Although the US does not recognize Taiwan as an independent state, Washington is opposed to any attempt by China to change the status quo by force. And the US is also Taiwan's largest arms supplier. The waters east of Taiwan form a key area for China's anti-access and area denial strategy. It's a military strategy which aims to control access to and within a specific area of operation. For China, the strategy involves preventing potential intervention from the US and its allies in the event of a landing attack on the island. In such a scenario, China's ground force brigade would use the PLA's most advanced long-range multiple launch rocket system known as the PCL-191. This system is capable of firing 370mm rockets up to a distance of 350 kilometers, that's 217 miles, and 750mm ballistic missiles up to 500 kilometers. Remember, the Taiwan Strait is only 280 kilometers at its widest point. If fired, the rocket system would be able to strike the Taiwanese west coast from positions in Fujian, China's coastal mainland province that directly faces the island. But this is not the first time China has held provocative exercises around Taiwan or sent out such messages. The first came after former US Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, remember, visited Taiwan in August 2022. And since then, China has only upped the ante in the Taiwan Strait. China has regularly sent military aircraft into Taiwan's air defense zone. Its warships have repeatedly crossed the unofficial median line between the Chinese mainland and the island republic. And as a result, the Taiwanese army is on perpetual alert. For China, such military provocations demonstrate its claim to Taiwan's territory, and China's government has, for that matter, repeatedly threatened to conquer Taiwan by force if it does not voluntarily join the mainland. No matter what Taiwan's population has to say, who, by the way, identifies themselves as Taiwanese and not as Chinese, it also rejects the prospect of unification with China. But China does not seem to care. Beijing calls those who do not want China's forced reunification as separatists. It has characterized its military presence around Taiwan as strong punishment for the separatist acts of Taiwan's independence forces. Beijing describes support for Taiwan by US and Japan as interference and provocation by external forces. With the conflict in Ukraine and West Asia dominating the world's attention, the tensions around the Taiwan Strait have been somewhat quiet for the past few months. Given China's evident readiness for war, it looks like the situation could change soon. Just how fast is the question, and we will have to wait and watch for that answer. It's a major victory for Iranian women, a victory that was long due. It's been 2 years since Mahsa Amini's death in custody. She died on September 16, 2022, days after the morality police there arrested her for an alleged breach of the country's strict dress code for women. She was only 22 years old. Remember, her death triggered months-long protests across the country, with hundreds of people, including dozens of security personnel, killed in the unrest. Thousands of demonstrators were arrested. On the second anniversary of Mahsa Amini's death in custody, the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, vowed to ensure the morality police will no longer bother women. Let's just play out for you what Pezeshkian said.
The morality police were not supposed to confront women. I will follow up so they don't bother them.
That is what he said, but what exactly would that mean? And would that be enough? This was, by the way, Pezeshkian's first press conference since he took office in July. During his election campaign, he vowed to fully oppose police patrols enforcing the mandatory hijab headscarf, as well as easing long-standing internet restrictions. In case you weren't aware, Iran has over the years tightly controlled internet use, restricting popular social media platforms like Facebook and X. Harsher curbs were enforced following 2019 protests against fuel price hikes and during the wave of demonstrations triggered by Amini's death. Pezeshkian has said his government was working to ease restrictions online, especially on social media. On Sunday, hundreds of people marched through Paris in support of women's rights and the opposition in Iran. The march was organized by around 20 human rights associations. It took place as 34 women began a hunger strike in a Tehran prison to mark the 2-year anniversary of Mahsa Amini's death. Several women in Iran were seen without hijabs. In fact, according to a member of the Iran Justice Collective, the sacrifices made by Iranians opposed to the regime were not in vain. adding, quoting, "We've gone from an absolutely patriarchal culture where there was no question of women being able to reveal themselves in the street to massive support for these women," quote unquote. You see, after Amini died in custody, the women-led protests which erupted rattled Iran's leadership, but there was a crackdown on the demonstrations by the authorities. Human rights groups say at least 551 people were killed, thousands more were arrested, according to the United Nations. From then to now, it's been a hard-fought battle for women in Iran for their basic rights and freedoms. And the world has been watching. A joint statement was released by the Secretary of State of the United States and the foreign ministers of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK on the second anniversary of Mahsa Amini's death. It calls on the new Iranian administration to fulfill its pledge to ease the pressure on the civil society in Iran and to end the use of force to enforce the hijab requirement. The statement says that the recent surge in executions that have largely occurred without fair trials has been shocking, urging the Iranian government to cease its human rights violations. Let's just take a step back here. Like we said at the outset, the Iranian president's statement is a victory for Iranian women. To what extent it will actually change things on the ground, though, remains to be seen. Also, this has come at a huge cost and a long struggle. And a lot needs to change for women in Iran. It's high time. According to the UN's independent international fact-finding mission on Iran, 2 years after the Women Life Freedom protest started following the deaths of Mahsa Amini, the government of Iran has intensified its efforts to suppress the fundamental rights of women and girls and crush remaining initiatives of women's activism. According to it, in the 2 years since, although mass protests have subsided, the unabated defiance of women and girls is a continuous reminder that they still live in a system that relegates them to second-class citizens, quote unquote. Second-class citizens. So there you have it. While the Iranian president's statement is a step in the right direction, it's a long way to go and a lot needs to change. In what is becoming an increasing concern and a worrying situation in the US, another temple has been vandalized in the country. This time, the incident occurred in Melville, located around 50 kilometers from New York City. The matter came to light after images started circulating on social media on Monday, showing anti-India expletives spray-painted on the road as well as on the signage outside the premises of the temple. Some of the expletives were also directed against Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, raising questions about the timing of this. Remember, Prime Minister Modi is scheduled to visit the US next week, where one of his engagements involves addressing a large Indian-American community event. This will be taking place less than 30 kilometers from the vandalism site. The event is reportedly aimed at further strengthening the connection between India and its diaspora. So was the incident in Melville deliberate? Was it timed to send out a message right before a high-profile visit? What was the motive? Whatever the motive might be, this is absolutely unfortunate and unacceptable. More so because the incident in Melville is not isolated. In January, the entrance sign at a temple in Hayward, California, was spray-painted with anti-India phrases. Just 2 weeks earlier, a Hindu temple was also defaced with anti-India elements in California. Terming the latest incident as unacceptable, the Indian consulate in New York has raised the issue with the U.S. law enforcement authorities to initiate prompt action against the perpetrators. In its statement, in fact, the Babs Swaminarayan Sanstha, that looks after the temple in Melville, strongly condemned the act, terming it as a hate crime, and urged for all communities to maintain peace. So why is this happening in the United States, especially in a country that seems to pride itself when it comes to freedom of religion and diversity? A few members from the US Congress, while denouncing the act, reportedly felt that the rhetoric of national leaders could be the cause. I'm quoting, "There is too much hate. I am appalled by the hideous acts of vandalism targeting the temple in Melville." That's what the US Congressman Tom Suozzi was quoted as saying in multiple news reports, adding that such acts of vandalism, bigotry and hate are happening far too often because of inflammatory rhetoric by national leaders, extremism and a lack of accountability that are un-American and contradict the core values of the country, quote unquote. In fact, as per multiple reports, Congressman Ro Khanna asked for greater accountability to avert a repeat of such incidents in the future. Freedom of worship is a bedrock of our democracy. There is no place for acts of intimidation, harassment, or violence. That's what Khanna said. Meanwhile, New York State Assemblywoman Jennifer Rajkumar, in a post on the platform X, called for an investigation and declared that freedom of worship must be protected at all costs. Babs Swaminarayan Sanstha, the organization that runs the temple, in a statement said that a prayer meeting was held at the site of the vandalism, which was attended by many U.S. representatives, senators, among other local, state and federal leaders. The incident has also drawn strong condemnation from the Hindu American Foundation, which has urged the U.S. Justice Department to investigate the matter. This disturbing pattern of vandalism targeting temples is not just limited to the United States alone. In Canada, temples have also been targeted. In July, the Babs Swaminarayan Temple in Edmonton, Canada, was defaced with anti-India graffiti and slurs. In April last year, a temple was also defaced with anti-India graffiti in Windsor, while in February the same year, a Babs temple was defaced. It's high time that this cycle of hate is put to an end, because it will only get worse if it goes unchecked. Israel has been at a war for nearly a year against Hamas, but it may be on the cusp of another one against Lebanon. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that the country will expand its war goals aimed at returning residents to northern Israel who had to be evacuated due to persistent attacks by Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. In fact, Netanyahu's office has said that the Security Cabinet has approved this move following a key meeting. Since the war in Gaza broke out in October last year, Israel and Hezbollah have practically exchanged strikes on a daily basis, leading to thousands of Israelis being evacuated from the northern parts of the country as a precautionary measure. The prospect of further escalation, a potential war, however, raises fears of massive escalation, one that not only threatens the stability of the two sides, but the entire region. The U.S. is reportedly unhappy with Netanyahu and what appears to be a clear snub against the Israeli Prime Minister. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will return to Egypt on Wednesday on his 10th trip to West Asia since October last year, but it will mark the first time that it will not include a stop in Israel. According to a statement by Israel's Defense Ministry, On Monday, Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant met the visiting U.S. envoy to discuss military operations against Hezbollah and the issue of displaced Israelis. As per the ministry, Gallant told Hochstein that the possibility of an agreement with Hezbollah is running out due to its continued support to Hamas that is preventing an end to the Gaza conflict. Thus, the only way to ensure the return of Israeli citizens to northern Israel is through military action. Reportedly, Hochstein cautioned Netanyahu against initiating a wider war against Lebanon, emphasizing to both Netanyahu and Gallant that a war against Lebanon will not achieve the objective of returning displaced Israelis to the north. Rather, it risks a much broader and prolonged regional conflict. Reportedly, Hochstein further told Netanyahu and Gallant that a diplomatic resolution in Lebanon through the Gaza hostage deal or a separate ceasefire deal with Hezbollah is the way forward. Hezbollah, on several occasions, has said that they will end their conflict with Israel if it ends the Gaza war. According to the Israeli Prime Minister's office, Netanyahu told Hochstein that unless the security situation with Lebanon changes, displaced Israeli citizens cannot return home. Israel appreciates and respects the support of the Biden administration, but in the end, it will do what is necessary to maintain its security and return the residents of the north to their homes safely, quote unquote. That is what the Israeli Prime Minister's office said in a statement. Despite Gallant and Netanyahu seeming to be standing on the same ground, the situation between them is anything but clear. As per reports in Israeli media, Netanyahu is considering firing Gallant, who, remember, has been a key partner to the Biden administration. According to Israeli press reports, Netanyahu secretly has been negotiating with one of his biggest political rivals, former Minister Gideon Sa'ar, to replace Gallant. Gallant and Netanyahu, remember, have had multiple issues in the past. Just last year, Netanyahu had fired Gallant but was forced to reinstate him after massive protests erupted over his decision. Just last month, Gallant dismissed Netanyahu's declared aim of achieving total victory over Hamas in Gaza as nothing more than nonsense. The Prime Minister's office then responded with a statement accusing Gallant of harming Israel's chances of securing a deal for the release of hostages held by Hamas. The major sticking point between the two, remember, is reportedly regarding military service. As per reports, ultra-Orthodox parties in Israel have threatened to topple Netanyahu's coalition government if he does not pass a bill exempting yeshiva students from military service, a bill that reportedly Gallant opposes. The U.S., as per reports, has a close association with Gallant and has on multiple occasions cautioned Netanyahu against firing him. This is just one of the many issues that has led to a rise in tensions between Netanyahu and America. Remember, we told you earlier that Blinken will make his latest trip to West Asia without a trip to Israel. A clear indication of America, in a way, snubbing Netanyahu. Reportedly, Netanyahu's failure when it comes to preventing the hostage deal and ceasefire in Gaza is the main reason behind Blinken's decision, because reportedly optimism around a resolution has largely vanished. Netanyahu has repeatedly insisted Israeli control over the Philadelphia corridor in Gaza, a narrow 14-kilometer strip of land that forms the border between Egypt and Gaza. And Hamas is opposed to this. And this has been the major sticking point between the two that has prevented the ceasefire deal from reportedly materializing. Multiple Israeli ministers, IDF, security agencies, the U.S. have emphasized that Israeli occupation of the corridor will have little to no impact. But Netanyahu has been relentless in his stance. Much to their displeasure, experts have on multiple occasions viewed this as an intentional move by Netanyahu to hold on to power and prevent elections from happening. As Israel looks to expand the war and the U.S. snubs Netanyahu, it is clear that tensions in West Asia continue to rise with every new step or development, adding to the fear that the all-out war across the region could soon become a reality. While America snubs Netanyahu for wanting to expand the war, India has snubbed America for its double standards. As the US pressures India on banning Russian media, New Delhi has reminded Washington that India can make decisions for itself. This time, the flashpoint is Rossiya Segodnya, also known as RT, a Russian state-controlled international news television network funded by the Russian government. Amid US efforts to ban and block Russian media globally, US officials reportedly asked the Indian government to join them in what they are describing as efforts to curb Russian disinformation campaigns. How did India respond to America's request, you ask? Well, New Delhi reacted the same way it has in the past 2 years of the Ukraine war. New Delhi reportedly stated that India has and will follow an independent foreign policy. You see, the war in Ukraine has been ongoing for over 2 years now, and during this time, the West has continuously lectured India on which side to support and what actions to take. And for all the times, New Delhi has been at the receiving end of Western hypocrisy. India has consistently reminded the West that it will prioritize its own interests. Currently, the US has been taking steps to restrict Russian media outlets, including revoking accreditations and designating Russian journalists under the Foreign Missions Act. In fact, Meta, the owner of Facebook, has also banned RT. Meta said that the ban would take place in the coming days. The move escalates actions against Russian state media actors that US intelligence officials have said run disinformation operations across the world's largest social networks. It started last week when the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced further sanctions against RT, claiming that the Russian media organization that has offices around the world, including in India, was the de facto arm of Russia's intelligence apparatus, quote unquote. The US crackdown on RT comes amid concerns that RT is trying to interfere in the upcoming presidential election in the US. In order to curb the Russian media's alleged disinformation campaign, the US State Department has initiated a joint diplomatic campaign with the UK and Canada. The campaign involves mobilizing allies and partners worldwide to confront the alleged threat posed by RT and its disinformation and covert campaign. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken called on every ally and partner to treat RT's activities as they would treat other intelligence activities by Russia within their borders. How has RT responded to these allegations? Well, both RT and the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs have vehemently denied the charges. In fact, a senior RT editor has directly accused the US government of paranoia and of being terrified of any truly dissenting voice. The Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that tech giant Meta has discredited itself by banning Russian media outlets. He said that the move further complicates prospects for normalization of ties with the Facebook and Instagram owner. Russia has also criticized previous efforts by Meta to limit the reach of Russian media and fined the company several times for not removing content in Russia that it considers illegal. Remember, Meta was branded an extremist organization in Russia shortly after the Ukraine war broke out in February 2022. Meta's social media apps were blocked in Russia for allowing hate speech against Russian nationals and for distributing false content about Moscow's military. WhatsApp was the only app that avoided restrictions due to its classification as solely a communication tool. Meanwhile, commenting on the US State Department's move to ban Russian media, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said that it amounts to a declaration of war on free speech. Coming back to India, RT enjoys significant viewership with its English-speaking audience. The Indian government has not issued any official response to America's request to ban RT, but New Delhi's decision to remain silent on the matter reflects India's careful approach to the issue. India holds a unique position of maintaining strong ties with both the US and Russia. New Delhi does not take drastic steps that could jeopardize these relationships. Its long-standing policy of upholding an independent foreign policy is well established. But time and again, India has had to assert its sovereignty. As India's closest ally and the world's oldest democracy, America should uphold its own values and respect India's autonomy as the largest democracy in the world. As the Ukraine war grinds on with no end in sight, the warnings from Moscow have only intensified. Russia has once again raised the alarm over Western military aid to Ukraine, particularly the potential deployment of long-range weapons capable of striking deep into Russian territory. Here's a detailed report.
Fighting in Russia's western Kursk region has intensified as Russian forces claim to have retaken 2 villages from Ukrainian control. The Russian military released these fresh images showing how its forces are targeting and destroying Ukrainian troops. Moscow has described the ongoing battles as part of a significant counter-offensive aimed at regaining control over the area where Kyiv launched an incursion a month back. As the situation on the ground remains volatile, Russia has renewed its stern warning to the West regarding the use of long-range weapons. The Kremlin has made it clear that any deep strikes against Russian cities will be met with a powerful response. According to Russian officials, high-impact weapons are already on standby, ready to be deployed if necessary. This warning follows ongoing discussions in the West about potentially expanding military aid to Ukraine, particularly with long-range systems that could target Russian military installations far beyond the front line. In a further show of force, Russia's military has showcased its Yars intercontinental ballistic missile systems, capable of delivering multiple nuclear warheads. These missiles are part of routine patrols aimed at maintaining a constant state of combat readiness. On another front, Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered an increase in military personnel by 180,000, bringing the total number of troops to 1.5 million. This troop surge would give Russia one of the largest active militaries in the world, second only to China. Amid this rising tension, Ukraine is also bracing for a difficult winter. Russian forces continue to target Ukraine's energy infrastructure, leaving much of the country dependent on its remaining nuclear power plants and energy imports from the European Union. As temperatures drop, the coming months could be some of the harshest Ukraine has faced since the war began. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Who will be Japan's next Prime Minister? The countdown has started. Just 10 days are left for Japan's governing party to elect a new leader. Remember, that leader will automatically become the country's Prime Minister. Now, as per a poll, Shigeru Ishiba has emerged as the most popular candidate so far. Among the top 3 favorites, Ishiba is leading with 26% of the respondents voting in the candidate's favor. Ishiba began his political journey in 1986 as an elected member of the House of Representatives, going on to serve as the Defense Minister in 2007 and subsequently becoming the chairman of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party of Japan in 2009. Since 2014, Ishiba has held several important ministries in his portfolio. Ishiba is a strong backer of Taiwanese democracy and has served as Defense Minister. Shinjiro Koizumi is the son of a former Prime Minister. Koizumi rose steadily, in fact, through the LDP ranks. In fact, after his marriage to a TV presenter, he became the first Japanese cabinet minister to take paternity leave. Just 2 weeks, though. This was after the birth of their first child. Koizumi has promised he will immediately seek a popular mandate by calling a snap election. Meanwhile, according to a Kyodo news poll, former Economic Security Minister Sanai Takaichi is viewed by 27.7% of Liberal Democratic Party supporters as the most suitable to be Japan's next Prime Minister. Basically, ruling Liberal Democratic Party supporters prefer Takaichi. formally entered the national political scene in 1993, and Takaichi played drums in a rock band as a teenager. Speaking of her life as a politician, during her time as Internal Affairs Minister, Takaichi made headlines with her visits to the war-linked Yasukuni Shrine on the anniversary of Japan's defeat in World War II. Visits by key government figures to the shrine often provokes the ire of China. She has a political reputation as a staunch conservative. In her book, she reportedly makes a case for more robust measures against serious China risks. In fact, she is regarded as a favorite of conservatives with hawkish views on defense and diplomacy. Our next story is about hangovers. You have probably heard that chugging water after a night out can save you from a brutal morning after headache. Well, it turns out that that remedy does not really hold up. That old hangover cure might not be the magic fix you thought it was. Reportedly, researchers at a university in the Netherlands decided to put this theory to test. They dug into data from 3 separate studies, trying to get to the bottom of what really causes a hangover and whether dehydration is the real villain. What were their findings? Well, water is not exactly the hero we imagined it to be. Now, a lot of us know how it feels waking up the next day with our heads pounding, stomach churning, energy tanked, a hangover basically. You would think that you did not drink enough water the previous night and then you guzzled down a bottle before bed, hoping for some relief. But these researchers split drinkers into 2 groups. One group drank water before sleeping and the other did not bother. What was the result? Both the groups felt just about the same the next day, nauseous, tired and in pain. Sure, those who hydrated themselves were less thirsty, but the headaches and exhaustion still hit just as hard. Researchers of the study reportedly said that dehydration is not the main reason we feel awful after a night of partying. According to them, the answer is quite simple. The more alcohol you drink, the worse your hangover is going to be. Water might help quench your thirst and soothe a dry mouth, but it will not do much for the headache, nausea, or overall hangover misery. It turns out that dehydration is only one tiny piece of the hangover puzzle. Alcohol messes with the hormonal system that controls our blood pressure and fluid balance, which is why we wake up thirsty. But that thirst only scratches the surface of what's really happening. The real hangover is lurking deeper in our body. As per the study, alcohol causes imbalance in the body, leading to headaches, fatigue, and the usual hangover symptoms. Furthermore, alcohol triggers an inflammatory response in our body, causing even more discomfort. So no amount of water is going to undo that damage once it's been done. And before you start searching for some other magic cure, let me stop you right there. The researchers are clear on this. There is no scientifically proven, commercially available hangover cure. If you want to avoid hangovers, there's only one foolproof solution: drink less or skip the alcohol altogether. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks for watching.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I should push myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 PM IST, 1 PM GMT.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Namaste. Hello, friends. We did Dr. Subhash Chandra show, popularly known as DSC show, for 4 years, from August 2014 to August 2018. 28 states of Bharat. Of course, we reached out to all of you in 190 countries across the world. The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to restart again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on WION, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
Vielleicht nur als